guys, welcome to the first ever Go Run show. We are all about trying to help you keep learning, keep improving your running. We want to give you insights and experiences not only from awesome athletes and coaches, some of the best ones around, but also everyday runners with pretty awesome stories to tell. And we're also going to look into complementary services like, nutritionists, Pilates instructors, personal trainers, physios, podiatrists, all the things that you might want to help you become a better and more rounded runner. I am really excited about our first ever guest on the Go Run show. She's a winner of the Great Ocean Road Marathon. She's a winner of the Two Bays Trail Run. She's the Australian 100k record holder and has qualified for the 100k World Championships later this year in Spain. She's a Wings for Life ambassador, a Mizuno ambassador, and plenty more. And what we've done with this episode is we've asked Kirstin Bull to join us, and I've asked the runners that I coach to put together some questions for her, for me to ask on this episode. And we've got questions on what type of nutrition does she use? What type of strength training does she do? Does she like the occasional glass of wine? What's her favorite biscuit? All the important things that you would want to know from such an awesome runner. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Kirstin Bull, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, great. Thanks for inviting me onto your show.
That's all right. No problem at all. We've obviously crossed paths on various trails and runs and athletics Victoria events over the past year or so, and it's lovely to chat to you properly. I think one of the main reasons I wanted to invite you to chat really was not only the fact that you're a phenomenal runner and winner of several events that I've participated in myself, and I can understand how difficult they are. But I remember going to a strength training for runners session a while back, organised by Tim Crosby, and them talking about how you change your training over the past few months and years, and I was fascinated by that. So we'll probably get into a little bit about strength and conditioning and what you've been doing a little bit later. But it's also an area that the other runners that I coach asked about in terms of you and what strength work you do, what gym work you do. They also asked some weird and wonderful questions that we'll get into a little bit later. But I wanted to start with how on earth did you get to be winning marathons, ultra marathons, and taking on the world at 100k distances? So can you sort of rewind the clock for us a little bit and walk us through how you've ended up here?
Yeah, sure. It's probably a question I get asked a little bit actually, and if I sit back and think about it, I originally began as a fun runner, as many people do, and sort of just ran in school a little bit, and sort of got to my teenage years and joined a gym and used to just run on the treadmill for 20 minutes at a time, and I started to really enjoy running and got a little bit fitter along the way. And then a friend that I met at the gym said to me one day, "Do you want to do a half marathon?" And I thought she was crazy because I'd only ever run 10k. So we said, "Okay, let's start training." So we'd train once a week around our local streets of Sunbury, and the longest we ever got up to was 14k, leading into the half marathon. And anyway, we ran the half marathon, and I just suddenly realised that I loved it, that the further I ran, the better I felt. So a year later, I decided to find a running group, and I found my running group, the Crosby Crew, who I still train with in the city.
Yeah.
And to cut a long story short, I think I wanted to run one marathon, and I ran Melbourne Marathon and debuted at time of 3:28, and I just suddenly realised then that sort of once again, the longer I ran, the better I felt, and that's sort of when I thought, wow, if I feel good running 40k, what might happen, running 50, 60k, and you go through your highs and lows. Like when I say I feel good, every race obviously it hurts, but it's actually the training that I love the most, running those long distances on a Sunday, and being with friends and being outside, and it was not last year, must have been the year before. My coach and I just sat down towards the end of the year and we thought, what are we going to do next year? And I said, why don't I give the 100k a go? And here I am.
That's awesome. Awesome. So come on then. What was your first, the time that you did in the first half marathon?
1:53, I think it
Oh,
was.
nice time.
Yeah,
Not
Sandy
bad for
Point.
the first one.
Yeah, I was very happy with that. I think I couldn't walk for about a week afterwards because I hadn't done enough training. But I still remember just thinking, wow, I can't believe I've run 21K. So it was one of those times where you just think, gee, if you can do that, imagine what you can do if you actually train and train properly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can you remember what it felt like to be that sort of at that stage, that sort of beginner first time doing your half marathon? Can you remember like vividly what it was like?
Yeah, I remember arriving on the morning of the race and being extremely nervous because I didn't actually know if I could even run 21K
Hmm.
because I'd only ran up to 14K prior to the race. So I started right at the back and I was running with one of my best friends and we sort of didn't want to get in the way of anyone. So we started like pretty much we were nearly the last runners after the gun went off and we ran along talking for a bit of the race and then sort of got 10K into it, and I suddenly thought, God, this is okay. I feel all right, and then got up to sort of 15K and thought, I actually might make this, and I feel pretty good. So then I decided to just start running a little bit faster, and it was an amazing experience. Just running past all these other people or running with some of these people, and just thinking, wow, I actually am going to be able to run 21 kilometres. So
It's an amazing
something.
achievement, I think. For most people, we sort of forget that 21 kilometers is a long, long way. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, people sort of, I think particularly now with the more ultra running and it becoming a little bit more mainstream, we sort of downplay some of the half marathon stuff. And I've seen it even happening with half Ironman actually. And these are amazing achievements. So yeah, awesome. Uh,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I couldn't walk for a week afterwards. I remember thinking, God, imagine doing that twice over for a marathon. Like, I seriously couldn't even contemplate it back then. But it's like you say, I guess over time, you build up to it. But it is amazing how people downplay it and go, oh, I only ran a half. And I think, no, it's not only a half. A half
yeah,
is a long way.
yeah, absolutely. But you've more than doubled or tripled the distances since then. And so from that first half marathon, you're now on your way to Spain to do the 100K World Championships. Let's talk a bit about that if you don't mind. So how did you qualify for that, and what are your goals for race day?
So I qualified off my previous 100K last year. So I raced in Holland last year for the Australian team. And to qualify last year, I had to actually run 100K in Australia. So I ran in Queensland at the Australian Championship. And I had to run under 8 hours and 30 minutes to get a qualifier as an A qualifier for the team. So I managed to do that, which was fantastic. And then I went to Holland last year and raced. And that was where I broke the Australian record and just completely surprised myself.
Hmm.
And that race then became a qualifier for this year because you get a 18-month grace period to allow for qualification.
I think it would take me that long to get over 100K. Like 18 months. That's good. That's very generous of them.
It is very generous. So it means that you don't, like, it was really good actually because it meant that I didn't have to race another 100K this year
Sure.
before going to Spain because you're right, it takes a lot out of you. Like I raced two 100K races last year and yeah, it took a lot of toll on the body just in terms of tiredness more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So when are you heading over to Spain?
I'll head over mid-November. The race is on the 27th of November, so I'll head over there sort of 10 days beforehand just to allow for the jet lag to settle and my body to adjust to the time zone.
Hmm. Hmm. And how do you get over there? Do you support yourself getting over there, or do you raise money, or what do you do about
Yeah, so unfortunately the sport's not funded at all. So all of the Australian athletes have to fund it themselves. So a friend of mine has kindly helped me set up a wine fundraising drive, and then another friend has very kindly set up just a fundraising page because he said he didn't like wine and he wanted to donate. And it's all going really well actually. People are just very generous and yeah, it really helps a lot in terms of, paying for airfares and paying for travel costs.
it? Sure.
Um,
It's not a cheap endeavor, is it really?
No, no, it's not. It seems that all these races are in Europe, so it's not like it's just down the road and you can just get a sort of a cheap flight. So, to go across the other side of the world. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd still go regardless, whether the sport was funded or not, because I think it's just an amazing opportunity and just to compete against other athletes from around the world.
Absolutely. Well, we'll make sure to put the link up to your fundraising, and we'll donate some stuff ourselves as well from Go Run.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
That's all right. So in preparation for the 100K, what does your training week look like at the moment? I mean, I know it'll change over time, but what are you sort of doing at the moment?
So I'm doing a 12-week program and building up in kilometres. So, for instance, the week just gone, I ran 155 kilometres for the week.
Right.
And that included a 46K training run yesterday, actually, on the Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. And I'll build up to roughly around 200 kilometres. And the sessions are all very different. So anything from long runs through to some quality speed sort of work during the midweek. To some back-to-back sessions.
Okay, that's quite interesting because I mean I have friends who are doing various other distances, marathon usually, and they can peak around 140, 150K. So it's not. I mean it's different, but it's not that far removed from in terms of overall distance that you're doing at the moment. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend on the weekend when we were out running, and I got some advice off a really good 100K runner when I first was writing my program, and sort of he said, you don't have to run more than 60K for your longest run, which is a long way off what your actual race distance is. If you compare that to, say, a marathon or a half marathon, where you might only run sort of 8 to 10K less than the actual distance.
Sure.
But it is interesting how you can just do it. It just transpires on race day. You have to believe that the method works.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you, I think you mentioned your coach a little bit earlier. So you have a coach, and, who are they, and what sort of made you decide to get a coach?
Yeah, so Tim Crosby is my coach, and, I think that meeting Tim was obviously a very life-changing experience for me. I met him many years ago when I joined the Crosby crew I think it was back in 2007 as a recreational runner. And at the time I literally just Googled running groups and his group came up, and I came into the tan and did one session, and I thought I'll never return again because it was sort of fast quality work that I'd never done before, and I just wasn't sure if that's the sort of thing I was after, but I soon learned that it's exactly what I needed to become a better runner. And, Tim was very engaging and very friendly, and so were a lot of people in the group, and I think that's sort of why I joined the group. And then Tim's taken me under my wing and pretty much taught me everything I know, which is, a really nice gesture. And I think, as a coach, he's given me a lot of sort of tips and advice over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any? I mean, we're often obsessed by stats and numbers and our Garmin's or other brands. Are there any particular numbers that you value in all of this training? Is it heart rate? Is it pace? Is it what are the sort of things that you look for in your training?
I do wear a GPS watch, like most runners these days, but I don't really focus too much on the fast stuff. I focus more on not running too fast in my easy runs, for example. Right. So, sometimes you can get caught up and be running too fast, and that's not good for the rest of your week sessions. So always being mindful of pace. So that's probably the biggest thing I use on my watch is pace. And then a lot of my other sessions, especially the quality work, I just go by feel. I think, you just got to put in 100% effort and not sort of worry about what the numbers are saying on your watch, because you actually know within yourself how you feel on the day. There could be a lot of other things in your life going on, and, it will affect your numbers. So I think you just shouldn't be too focused on the actual numbers.
Absolutely. So go on then. Give me a rough idea of on a relatively good day, what sort of pace is an easy run at, roughly?
Mm-hmm. Look, I generally sit anywhere between 440s to 450s
Okay.
per kilometre for an easy run these days.
Okay.
And that's, comfortable running along, chatting.
Yeah.
I ran with friends yesterday, like I say, for 40 plus Ks, and we ran at an average of 442 or something like that. So as long as I'm not running, like I say, too fast, but I find my natural sort of easy pace now has definitely got faster than what it used to be, a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's probably good news, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you do all the quality work and you get stronger, and also getting in the gym and getting stronger, then when you go and do your easy stuff, you actually just naturally run a little bit faster, but it still feels easy, because obviously you've got the fitness behind you, and you've got a little bit of strength and endurance there as well.
Absolutely. So how often would you say that you run easy over the course of a week? Is most of it easy, or? Yeah.
So I do, most of it is relatively easy, actually. I do 2 quality sessions a week where it's, 100% effort, lots of fast-paced reps, or learning to hold a certain pace for a certain amount of time. And then at the moment, I'm actually doing some altitude training in an altitude chamber in Richmond. They're called Pro Sport, and they have 2 treadmills and some bikes in there for spin class, and they've been very generous in supporting me in going there twice a week to run on the treadmill.
Okay.
And that's to run in altitude, so get your body used to running at a lower oxygen concentration, and also with heat. So I think, even though it's meant to be an easy run, I'm running an easy pace, my body still becomes quite stressed running that pace because of the heat and the altitude. So that's sort of something else I've added into my program this time around.
That's interesting. You're obviously running some really serious distances, and one of the main questions that when I asked my own runners that I coach for questions for you, one of the main questions they came back was, how the hell does she, what does she think of on, 46 kilometer worth of running? And you sort of answered it with, you were with friends and running and chatting away. That's fine. But what about if you're on your own? What do you think of? And do you wear headphones, or, do you listen to music? What goes through your head?
I'm variable with music. Sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I don't. It really depends how I feel on the day. Otherwise, I find running by myself really quite relaxing. It's an active sort of form of meditation where you can, problem solve. You can think about things that might have happened at work or in your daily life. And you can really sort of nud things out in your head, or you can plan things. I know a couple of years ago I was studying my master's, and I used to go out running, and I'd actually start to write some of the assignments that I had to do in my head while I was out there. So it really depends on what's going on in my life, but I don't always need music. Sometimes it's actually quite nice to go out and just, hear the pitter-patter of my feet and just the natural sounds of whatever's in the environment, and just let your mind just be free and wander.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you sort of cope pretty well with the mental challenges of that type of distance. That's awesome to hear. I wanted to sort of turn a little bit towards advice that you'd received and advice that you give out. I mean, you're obviously a very, very experienced runner these days. And what's the sort of most common advice that you find yourself giving to other runners?
Probably don't go too hard too often is one, and don't increase your distance too quickly, so your weekly distance too quickly. The biggest thing we find, and I'm a running coach as part of the Crosby crew as well as being a runner, is that we get new runners and they're so keen, and it's so good to watch, but they just they want to do what everyone else is doing really quickly, and they end up just breaking down. And we've all been there. I spent a year on and off injured in 2013, and I don't want other people to be injured. So my biggest advice generally is to say, you're only allowed to do 1 quality session a week, and I want you to run, 2 or 3 other days, but no more than that initially. And it's just about the building phase and teaching people that they've got to allow their body to adapt over time as well.
Absolutely. Moving on to those injuries, what were those the most serious injuries you've sort of ever had over that period?
Yeah, I think it was a fair bit of it was related to biomechanics and just a bit of overload. So I had a few stress reactions. So I never had a stress fracture, luckily. Always got caught early, but just a stress reaction when there's a bit of fluid around the bone and the bone's not happy, and generally in my lower leg. It was always said to be the same leg. So once I got my biomechanics sorted out and, managed to find a really good podiatrist and physio, it seems that most of my problems have gone away. But I also think getting in the gym and doing a lot of strength work has helped with that as well.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the pieces of advice that I wanted to sort of pick you up on. What sort of cross training and strength training activities do you do on a sort of weekly basis to support your running?
So I am in the gym. I try to get to the gym 3 times a week. If 4 if I'm really, really lucky, but 3 is definitely my minimum at the moment. So I'm training at Southside Fitness in St Kilda with a trainer, Lee, and I do 1 session a week with him and a friend. So there's just one-on-one type of session with the 2 of us, and then I go into the gym 2 other times, and like I say, a 3rd time if I can, to do my own training. But the session I do with the trainer, Lee, is sort of heavyweight or endurance type plyometric work, and then the sessions I do by myself are generally don't involve a lot of weight. A lot of it's more body weight and just working on my core as well as leg endurance and overall strength.
Yeah, that's great. Great to hear. I think traditionally, obviously us runners, we've not really done that sort of stuff. So for me anyway, as a coach, it's nice to see that sort of stuff is coming in more and more and more, and people are taking on, whether it's Pilates or yoga or something else outside of their running. To me, it's quite refreshing. Do you see that as well as a coach?
Yeah, definitely. I think it complements it really well, and I know a lot of our runners within our community of running are also doing either Pilates or yoga, or more of them are actually starting to get in the gym, and I think that's because there's quite a few of us that are in the gym, and they see that we're running stronger and fitter and better in terms of your biomechanics and not getting injured. So there is, I think, at the moment a big transition from runners just running and doing nothing else to now, thinking about getting in the gym rather than perhaps just running continuously or getting on the bike. Is another form of cross training.
Absolutely. In terms of your nutrition, I mean, you're obviously doing an enormous amount of Ks, and you've got a job and a life and all this sort of stuff. You must be constantly eating. What's your nutrition like in general? Is there any sort of rules that you stick to or anything like that?
No rules as such. I do get asked this question a little bit. I'm a grazer, so I just eat all day, basically. So I sometimes say to people, I'm a bit like a little kid where I need to have something to eat every hour or 2 hours, and I prefer to graze all day. And interestingly enough, the more that I train, the more that I actually just crave healthy food and lots of carbs and protein, and your fruit and veggies. When I stop training or pull back the training, that's when I actually crave sort of more of the sweet stuff. So people say, oh, you're on a diet, there's cakes or chocolate at work, and I tend not to eat them. But I say, no, it's not that I'm on a diet. I said, I just don't really feel like eating it, because if I eat it, then about an hour or half an hour later, I feel a bit ill, just from a bit of a sugar and overload. And I just know that it doesn't make me run well. I could eat a nice piece of cake, but then an hour later I go for a run, I just feel horrible. So it kind of correlates with the amount of training I'm doing, I think.
Absolutely. I'm on a bit of a down period at the moment in terms of my own training, and I'm eating terribly. So I can very much relate to that. I'm trying to get back running, so eat a bit better.
Yeah, I think they definitely go hand in hand. The other thing that unfortunately, I shouldn't say it's a good thing that happens, is I eat in the middle of the night, and I think that's just because my metabolism is on overdrive, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm really hungry, and I can't get back to sleep until I have a little snack, and then go back to sleep. So I think it's just you're burning so much on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. And what about booze? Are you somebody that likes the odd glass of wine every so often, or do you stay away from the stuff? What's your sort of a take on that?
I love to have a drink, and my coach will always second that. So we had a funny discussion the other week about how much I'm allowed to have to drink now that I'm really into the serious training. But I'm sort of on the philosophy that moderation is the key. So I can have a glass of wine or two as long as I'm not having ridiculous amounts of alcohol before I go for a long run or in the recovery phase. And same with, I'm starting to enjoy a beer now that I've been travelling to Europe, and I enjoy, summer's coming and having a beer, and I don't really think that it affects you too much. Obviously, as I get closer to the race, I'll probably be a bit more conscious of really just not drinking at all if I can. Sure. But yeah, I really think it's about moderation, because if you stop everything, I guess you feel like you're, not missing out, but you feel like you're on a really tight sort of whim, and you're more likely to go the other way and have a real big binge otherwise. So kind of like with food, I guess.
Absolutely. No, I'm of the same opinion, to be honest with you. And as somebody who's got a very addictive relationship with food, I can very much relate to that. If I have a little bit every so often, that's fine. But if I abstain, it's not. It doesn't end well. Put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Like I went out with friends on the weekend, had a couple of beers, and then ran my long run on Sunday. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you know where your limits are and what you're trying to achieve with your training and things like that. So
absolutely, and it's about that overall life balance and what's going on in the rest of life as well, isn't it? That sort of
definitely.
You can't disentangle the training and the rest of life, I don't think, and people try to a little bit too often. But yeah, okay, that's interesting. In terms of advice that you've received, I'm just thinking, you've obviously got exposure to an enormous number of very good athletes, as well as awesome coaches and others. What's some of the best advice that you've received over the past few years that sort of stuck in your head?
Probably from my coach, Tim, about pacing and being patient. So he was a good track athlete in his day, but also a good marathoner. And the one thing he taught me about marathon running was that you have to be patient and you have to pace well. And if you get those things right, then your run will be really well executed. And I think in ultra running, especially 100K, it's the same principle. So you have to be patient and you have to think about your pace and always be on the mark there. And then the rest will all sort of follow through. So for this race, obviously, I have to pick a pace and then be able to maintain it for 100K. So it's all about, you get to sort of 20, 30K and I'm going to be feeling great. Like, ideally, I'm going to be feeling great because I'm picking a pace that I'm going to be able to maintain for hours.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best advice I've, ever got off Tim. And then obviously, along the way, you pick up lots of different tips from different people about recovery and how important recovery is. I don't think people sort of appreciate how important it is if you've done, big kilometres or heavy workload to make sure you're getting your massage or doing your cold water recovery and, eating the right food and sleeping.
Sure. Awesome. I've got a few sort of rapid fire questions that some of my guys wanted to ask you, and they're just basically one or the other, or sort of preferences, if you like. So would you mind if we go through those very quickly? There's a few.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, so what do you prefer, trails or road?
Oh, I like both. They're very different sports, so I find trail running completely different to road running, so I have a love for both.
Okay.
I like the fact that you can actually mix them up. That's what I like.
Yeah, true.
You can do 6 months of road running and then you go, I'm going to go do something different, but you're still running, but then you're on the trails and it's very different.
You're going to be difficult with these, aren't you? I can feel.
There's not going to be one answer.
Yeah. So, okay then, hills or flat?
Hills.
Hills. Oh. Favorite race location?
Ooh, I've got two. It'd be Two Bays Trail Run and Great Ocean Road Marathon.
Awesome. Both great races.
Yeah.
Favorite post-race indulgence?
Gee, that's a tough one. I generally feel like something salty, so hot chips.
Okay, hot chips. I'll never forget going to the end of the Great Ocean Road Marathon and seeing two of the lead runners sat in the bakery afterwards, just destroying Fanta and like pies and all that sort of stuff. It was great.
Well, I'm generally not a hot chip eater, but after the World 100K champs last year, it was the best thing that I could have eaten, and I think it was just because I wanted the salt and the carbs.
Yeah, mine's definitely ice cream, 100%.
All right.
Beer or wine?
One.
Wine. And my sister asked me to ask this question. Favorite biscuit?
Ooh, Scotch finger.
Dutch finger, good choice. Good choice. All right then. Well, before we go, you've given us all these little pearls of wisdom. Any final sort of pieces of advice for those runners who are just starting out on the trails or who fancy themselves as ultra runners in the future? What would you say?
I'd say apply the principle of moderation and adaptation, so allow your body to adapt to the longer distances. Don't just go out there and enter a 100K race without building up and doing, your 10K, your half marathon, your marathon, because you'll just break down and no one likes to be injured. So, adaptation is the key, and choose races that, are in great locations, because that's half the fun, is when you can run in beautiful places and enjoy the scenery while you're out there.
That's awesome. Great advice. Great advice. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Kirstin Bull. It's lovely to chat to you, and good luck over the coming weeks and months before the 100K World Champs in Spain. And I'll be asking the guys to support you in the fundraising drive as well. So thanks very much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Nice to chat.